Live streaming is on.
Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is September 13, 2021. Thank you so much to Clinton Ignatoff. Thank you, Clinton. You're the man. Concerned Medicine is the hippest, greatest channel on YouTube and forever will be. Or at least it's pretty dang good. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Bobby Campbell. Wow. Thank you so much for your time, Bobby.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
First question is what is the best thing for a human being?
Opportunity, I think. I think without opportunity, I think, you kind of spin your wheels and you get yourself into trouble just kind of maintaining. But with opportunity, I think it allows you to grow and kind of have something to keep you moving forward.
What a great answer. I've never had that answer. What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you? What form is the information?
I sequential art, which is just a fancy word for comics. I like words and images in interplay.
So sequential art, I love that. That is when did comics start calling it that? From day one?
No, I think it was a later term. I'm going to guess Will Eisner came up with it. I believe in the 70s because he was kind of like behind the early push to legitimize it more. Because I mean, it was a trash medium, and I mean, remains in a lot of people's eyes a trash medium. I mean, these guys didn't even save their original art because they didn't think they were doing anything that was above, like tabloid nonsense. So Will Eisner was big into like legitimizing it as an art form. I believe he also coined the phrase graphic novel. So it was all about taking it out of, the drugstore spinner rack and putting it, somewhere a little bit loftier.
Well, we're definitely going to get back into that topic. Drugstore spinner rack. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That is some great pop culture. Spinner rack. That is great. Drugstore spinner rack. Okay. And why do you think humans collect or gather information?
I think time binding, which is an Alfred Korbitsky. I can never say his name. The general semantics guy. I think it's about like storing cultural memory so that you don't make the same mistake over and over again, and you can kind of build on the successes of the past.
Boy, Alfred, time binding. These are great words. You're teaching me a lot. Okay, so is this need, Bobby, this need to collect or gather information, is it more innate or more more innate or more invented?
Well, I think we are innately inventive. So I'm going to say innate. But I think, as, Homo sapien, man, the tool maker, I think inventing is the thing that is innate in us.
Right. That's one of them. But you're saying like eating, you're probably say me and you are innate to eat, but we've invented ways to prepare food or ways to eat, chopsticks or breatharians. They can live by breathing. Yeah, right.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
I think they can perpetuate them. But I think actually, in a lot of cases, I think emotions create thoughts. I think, again, there's a big thing in general semantics is that you react. Each reaction is a reaction of the organism as a whole. And then I think a lot of times, I think the thoughts are after the fact justifications for feelings that we're feeling. I think we. I'll quote Joyce: "First we feel, then we fall."
Where'd Joyce say that?
It's a Finnegan's Wake bit.
First we feel, then we fall. Boy, then we fall. I should know that one. That was a good one. But tell me that word you said, perpetuate. What's another word for perpetuate? Or what do you mean by that? Suss that word out a little.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that if you're feeling a certain way, I think that your thoughts can I think you can create the circumstances that you continue that feeling with thought. That the thought can trap you in the moment that made you feel that way by recreating it.
Wow. Is thinking more innate or more invented?
I think invented, because I think thinking requires at least some sort of symbol system. I think if it was, I think the innate version of thinking would just be perceiving.
Okay, you must have ESP. You think you have ESP?
I don't know.
No. If you're telekinetic, raise my hand. No. Can humans think without language?
Yes. Well, no, not without language. You're right. Yeah. I think you can think without words, but I think that you need some sort of symbol system to think.
Fill in the blank, Bobby. I don't know what I think until I
know. What do I mean by that? I guess I think it's
good. That was good until I know. You don't mean
I know.
Wait, let me guess. You don't mean N-O, you mean K-N-O-W.
K-N-O, yeah. And I think it's sort of like the reaction of the organism of a whole. Yeah, I'm like gut feeling. I don't mean know as in like you know for a fact. I mean know as in you know for yourself what you are feeling in that moment, what you have to do about it.
It's amazing because also when I do these interviews, I'm after people's hunch, impulse, intuition, guess. I'm not asking you to think an answer and say, well, I know because I've studied this or that. But you can't really separate the head and the heart. But we can because we invented the words.
right. We think we can separate them.
We think we can, but it's good. Bridget Bardot said, I don't know. When I make love, I don't think. It's like, good luck.
Right.
That sounds like a great aspiration. You want to be surrendered to this sensual experience, but when people say meditate, okay, think about not thinking.
Right. Yeah. You end up just patting yourself on the back for what a good job you're doing not thinking until you realize, oh wait, I'm thinking that. I've literally experienced that. I'm like, I'm actually doing pretty good here. I've made it pretty far without thinking anything. And then, it takes me forever to be like, well, then who's talking right now?
So again, another stupid question. It's both and it depends, but your observations of humans, are humans more thinking or more feeling beings?
I think more. I think in general more feeling.
Yeah.
I think that I think a lot of it is like people react in the moment, and again, I think the thinking is backwards justification for the feeling.
Yeah, that's great. Backwards justification. These two Alan Turing questions from 1950. Is thinking a function of the soul?
I guess it depends on what you mean by soul. If we think of the soul as like the part of your identity that persists beyond your physical presence, then I think that would be a function of thought and language and all that. Because you think like if I say James Joyce and you know who I'm talking about, then that means that he's not around anymore. So what is it of him that persists? And that's thought and language that persists. But if we mean soul in the sense of like, are part of the cosmic unity or whatever you could conceive it as, then I would say no, that's like beyond and before thought and language.
Really well put. We know someone who was interviewing Captain Beefheart once, and they were just going through various questions. They go, what do you think of Joyce? And he goes, Joyce who?
Right.
I think James Joyce would have been really happy to hear that.
Yeah.
In a way, he would go, wait a minute. because Beefheart did like Nabokov, and he knew literature, Philip Larkin and blah blah blah. But it was so funny when Joyce Who, because he's sort of like a savant. So that was good. Go ahead.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
So the second Turing question is: can machines think?
Not that I've seen yet. I think they more react, as far as I can tell. I mean, because there's that whole thing, like, 5 years ago, we thought that self-driving cars were going to be tooling all around. And I think it turns out that, like, it's actually not, like, we're nowhere near that being possible, because they can't deal with edge cases. They can't deal with weirdness. They can only deal with things that are set in their specific controlled world. So, like, if the example they had was a car pulled up behind a truck that was transporting stoplights. So the car pulled up and all it could see were 50 stoplights, and it just couldn't deal with it because stoplights don't belong in the back of trucks, and it couldn't parse that situation. So that's not thinking, that's it failing to have a response to that circumstance.
That's some millennial code writer not getting the code written right yet.
Well, but I think the idea with edge cases, though, is that you can never write enough code for every circumstance in the world.
Yeah. So edge is EDGE.
Yeah, edge cases. So the things that don't fit into what you would normally think you're going to encounter on the road, but every time you drive, something weird happens.
Well, that's what life is. It's a big edge case.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I definitely think that or maybe we're gonna have to downgrade what we think our thinking is, and maybe they can do that. Maybe we're just stimulus response machines too. So either the answer is no, or we have to take a demotion, and the answer is yes.
You really get what I'm after. I appreciate this, Bobby, because I'm always trying to refine, reword, and whatnot, and that was really good, because it is multiple answers is totally feasible in this regard. And this is one that the woman I interviewed the other day helped me change the wording. Now, let's analyze the question. And you tell me if I should change it or add. Here's how I normally asked it. So, Bobby, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night? And then she brought it up to think. Because I asked these think questions at the beginning, I decided to put it in the think section and change it to, what do you worry about or think about when you go to bed at night? So put a slash, or should I leave it out of thinking and just say, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I think it's better. Weirdly, I think you probably might get better results by cornering people and then letting them, you know what I mean? Like, if you give them the wiggle room built into the question, I feel like you get a better response if you corner me and say, what do you worry about? And then
that's it. You did it.
You're
perfect. I'm crossing it out on my notes right now. Because where I got the question was the Rumsfeld documentary by Earl.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. What, someone asked him that?
Oh yeah, Earl Moore is like one of the greatest documentarians alive. Goes, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night? I goes, that's a good question.
What did he say?
Oh God, I don't remember. But
okay,
you, the whole movie is like talking to Marshall McLuhan. Rumsfeld. Talk about wiggle room. He knows wiggle room up the yin yang. But most people hate him because he's a war criminal. And
right.
But believe me, these guys know how to wiggle.
I gotta say, it always freaks me out when those guys actually turn out to be smart, and you can see them being smart. Like, you almost wish that they were dumb, and that would help it make sense. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, he hurt all those people because he didn't know better. No, he did know. He knew exactly, and he was did it anyway.
That's really anticipating some of our future questions, because we want to believe. I always said everybody hates Trump, and that is like the only thing you do with Trump is love him. They go, all right, are you a Trumpite?
Right. Yeah.
What are you gonna do? But is hating Trump do anything? Does hating Rumsfeld do anything in the long run? But it's a debatable subject. I hope people don't get the wrong idea. But that was great. That was great advice. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I left over from when I was little, continuity, like how I got to where I am. That tends to be what I think about before. It may not be worrying so much, but in some cases it is. But
Yeah.
it is. It's how did I get from here to there to there to here, and that tends to be what I think about when I go to bed, is the continuity of how I ended up where I am.
Beautiful. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Definitely happiness, for sure, because meaning seems like a like symbol system game. It's a Joseph Campbell thing. He was like, life has no meaning. It's like a category thing. It's like, how many penguins does a grocery store have? It's just, meaning refers to life. The idea that life is a thing that has meaning, and almost like the Marshall McLuhan thing, where like people, one of the biases of text is people attempting to read the world when they're supposed to be looking at the world. And so when you try to attempt to read life and ascribe meaning to it, again, I just think it's a category error. I don't think life is a thing that has meaning. I think life is a thing that has experience.
That was a lot. You really got me going there, because I like, I think you meant to say turtles instead of, would you say penguin? No, what was the animal?
Oh, penguins. Yes. Yeah.
You said penguins. You meant turtles all the way down at the grocery store, right?
Oh, I wasn't doing I should have been doing the turtles all the way down. I love that bit.
You mean you just sort of grabbed in your Rolodex of your head penguins?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking if I could grab one category and then another mismatched category, it would come together. Sometimes I just start talking and hoping it circles back around on itself.
It's like, sometimes I just start talking and hope that it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
That is great. So does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness?
I like the idea of it detecting consciousness. I as a sci-fi concept, I don't know about reality, but I love, Rupert Sheldrake's thing that the brain is a antenna that tunes in consciousness from somewhere we don't know. I don't know that I believe that as something that's happening in real life, but it's a way more interesting premise than it being just a sort of side effect of protoplasm firing neuro signals around,
Dude, you are brilliant. I listened to Rupert on the radio last week, and he just blew me away, because as much as people say that guy's pseudoscience and they bitch about him, he comes off as really a sharp thinker.
No, he's so fun. It's so fun. I don't have degrees enough to say whether his biology is one way or the other, but I know someone that makes me think fun thoughts and someone that doesn't, and he's someone that does.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was really fun listening to him. What's faster, the speed of light or speed of thought?
I'll go thought. I think, yeah. Especially, again, a lot of times I tend to go with, because these days I'm writing sci-fi, and so I'm kind of, my imagination is in what would be more interesting, and I think it would definitely be more interesting if thought was faster than light, and yeah, I'll stick with that.
Good. So, that's where people go, well, I'm not a neuroscientist or blah, blah, blah. I don't study physics. I goes, you just guess. And so there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right. So
right. Very good.
So Audre Lorde, the poet, says you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rainer responded to her and said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
It's not I don't know that it's a new tool, but I think it is something that people are using in new ways. But narrative and context, I think, are extremely powerful tools for not just dismantling existing structures, but building new ones. I think, I think when you have context, you can achieve all sorts of things, because all of a sudden new worlds that have been there all along spring to life and have cohesion.
Is there another word you'd tell me to explain context? What's another word? Or
I guess wait, a narrative is another way to tell it. Or I guess
I like narrative, but I mean, aside from narrative, how would you call you're not saying content, you're saying
no context, like the underpinnings of what makes your situation your situation.
Right, underpinnings. See, I was thinking environment. Would environment
Oh
work?
yes, environment would definitely work. Yeah.
Because narrative, I would put storytelling. Now, is storytelling more innate or more invented?
I think it might be innate. I think it might be something that comes naturally. Though I think we use inventive techniques to further it, but I think it might be something that we do innately for sure.
McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about them. So McLuhan's big question was why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects, even though we can turn to the artists, the cartoonists, the filmmakers, the poets to reveal these hidden psychic effects? So why do you think we humans still ignore these?
I think a lot of times, like the people most capable of affecting change are those least likely to want it. I think the status quo is a pretty well guarded situation. And then I think society is constructed in such a way that it changes very slowly. It's a very, it's like it's like the Titanic heading towards the iceberg, but it's not built for turning on a dime. It's built for slow over time navigation. And then and also like the signals you get from artists are a mixed bag and they don't always agree, and you're getting 100 different interpretations of it all pointing in different directions. Like if we had listened to all of Ezra Pound's ideas, I don't know that would have been such a good thing.
Yeah, sometimes I should say, poet, and then people go, hey. Yeah, McLuhan used to visit him in the well, you can't say nut home anymore.
No, yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know what
yeah. Well, he called it the bug house, right? That was his term for it.
That was Ezra's term?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Robert Anton Wilson was a big fan of Ezra, right?
Well, it was so I only came to Ezra Pound because of Robert Anton Wilson, and I've read the Cantos and like absolutely loved it. One of the most amazing things I've ever read. And so I'm like, let me go to the library and find out more about this fella. And then I was like, wait a minute. It's like I go home, get on the computer. I'm like, Mr. Wilson, what is this? And he was like, oh, don't worry about it. Like it was it was quite a shock to because I'm sure most people get it the other way. They kind of know his history and then discover his work in spite of it. But I actually made it pretty far down the path without really knowing what his history was.
And it's also the big conundrum. Can you separate the art from the artist?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier after the fact because, like, really at this point, I think what you do is you take what's good about Pound and you leave everything else behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
When he's not here causing trouble still, it's a lot easier to do that. To, take the good and ditch the bad.
Yeah. It's interesting because my opinion is great art should fuck your shit up and go, I can do that.
Yeah.
So that's difficult. Like George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, I says, what kind of music do you like? He says, I like the kind of music that pisses me off. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
That's probably one of the keys to Pound, that he did that, but we don't want to promote the other. Now, that's perfectly leads into, do artists have a moral obligation?
No, I don't know that they do. I think they have an. I think it's better when they're honest. Because I think even someone like Ezra Pound, I think that sharing his thoughts in that way allows us to learn from them. I think when an artist is being honest, they're being useful. Now, there's a difference between someone using their platform to cause active damage. That's different from someone just kind of sharing themselves honestly.
That's a heavy one, because you might know this guy. I learned about him probably 20 years ago. Cartoonist in Florida, where the judge, it's something about gross, or I don't know what it was. He drew these cartoons that were so gross. A judge said, you're not allowed to draw your cartoons anymore. Do you know this guy's
Yeah.
name?
Yeah,
What's
I don't remember who it was though. I know I think it was it led to the birth of the comic book legal defense fund, but I don't remember the actual guy.
Comic book legal defense funds? Because so I want to get his name again, because it wrecked his life. He was like in America, like, what if a judge said to you, Bobby, you can't do your comics anymore? You're like, it ruined this kid's life. So I mean, it is. I always say that in America this happened, and they go, no way. It
Sure, yeah.
So are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Old ideas for sure. There's that always that thing of you know it feeling like more primitive ideas, like almost like the reptilian consciousness creeping back in. Sort of like everyone credits Marshall McLuhan with the global village thing, but he was like, that's a bad thing. That's us reverting to tribalism. What did he call it? Electronic feudalism. What he envisioned.
Dude, your McLuhan. Global Village, he got that from Wyndham Lewis. In mid-career, he updated it to Global Theater.
Right, yeah, which makes even more sense.
Yeah. Man, it's rare to find someone who really knows McLuhan. That's pretty good, Bobby. You're scoring big points. I don't know how Clinton's not creaming his jeans over there. Okay, please tell me your earliest memory, or one of them ever. One of your earliest memories.
Yeah, earliest memory. Me and my brother, we had just gotten a brand new swing set, and I've got a blue popsicle, and my parents are in the distance, fussing about in the garden. That is I've tracked it down. I'm pretty sure that's the earliest one.
That's good. You tracked it down. That's like,
You know,
how do you track your memory?
Well, I do a lot of auto bio comics, and so I have a like a running because you try to figure like, oh, is that a good story? Is that something that adds to it? So I actually have my memories pretty well like categorized, and
But you mean literally written down, or you have a Rolodex in your
mind? No, I keep it in my head. I do have. I have a list for like the ones that I want to do more like recently, or sooner rather than later. So I keep a list of what the next comic's going to be, and so I just go to the next one, or find one that interests me the most.
Pretty dang good there, dude. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Definitely a blessing.
Yeah.
I always like. I got this from Robert Anton Wilson. He used it instead of rest in peace, but it was Dov sta memoria, which is where memory lives, which is basically like again, that's where people go when they die, is into memory.
What the dove word is Latin?
Yeah, Dov sta memoria. It's a Latin phrase.
That is good. That's going to help me a lot. That's really good. Where memory lives. That's beautiful. So tell me an early role model, someone who had an impact on you in your immediate family, And just briefly, and what specifically was that impact? And then outside your immediate family.
So immediate family, I had an uncle, my uncle BJ, and he was he was kind of like the cool uncle, the one that was kind of more successful and nicer and smarter and all that. And he was the first and only at the time adult that would like level with me. So I had watched the Challenger explode. I'd stayed home sick from school, and on TV, instead of Gilligan's Island, they had this rocket going up in the air, and it blew up. And nobody would talk to me about it. No one would answer my questions about it, except for him. He was just like, why do bad things happen to good people? All that kind of stuff that a 6-year-old's going to want to ask someone. And he was, able to engage me and be honest about everything, and that was quite helpful. And then from there, he was kind of like the go-to guy when you had something you wanted to talk about.
That is great. Now, outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on your role model.
Probably my high school German teacher, Herr Dowling. For whatever reason, he decided that learning German wasn't going to be that useful to me. So instead, he taught me how to fix computers, how to use Photoshop. He handed me my first Alan Moore comics and Will Eisner and Jack Kirby, and he just kind of set me down this like art technology path. Just, I don't even know how or why, but it was a huge life-changing influence.
And you named 3 comics: Alan Moore, Will Eisner. Who was the third one?
Jack Kirby.
Jack Kirby, yeah. And so, did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Not at first. At first, my mom was kind of like a Carl Sagan, Stephen Hawking kind of person, and I was kind of encouraged to create my own mythology. So I invented a kind of like Brockman style cosmic consciousness mixed with Santa Claus, because that was my other guess as to what a all-knowing being would be. So it was sort of like a cosmic wishing machine. But as my mom kind of headed towards alcoholism and some mental health issues, and that led her to re-embrace Catholicism, and so tried to bring me into it, but I was a little too old. Like, I got taken to church first time maybe 7, 8, and I don't know, maybe when you're introduced to it when you're younger, you don't think about it, but they got a guy in there nailed to the wall, and I didn't like it. I did not like it, sir. I was like, why did they got the guy up there? He's hurt. Get him down. Like, it was just. I was too old to be brought into it. I think you got to hook them young.
Boy, Robbie, you are so sorry. When you said Brockman, who's the first name of Brockman? Who do you?
Brockman. No first name. That's the Hindu god. It's like the cosmic consciousness that everyone.
The Hindu god. Okay, thank you, Brock.
Oh yeah, no problem. Brahman.
Okay, Brockman. Okay, I got it. Thank you. So yeah, Hindu and Santa Claus. That's good. So, do you pray?
I don't know that I pray. I commune maybe. I would. Yeah. If that's praying, I always think of praying as like asking for stuff. And that I don't do. But communing, kind of like recognizing, my continuity with everything else. That I definitely do.
That is good. If God does exist, what do you want God to say to you after you die?
I think I'd be bummed if after I died there was still like duality and like one person saying something to another.
God comes up to you and you go, "Hey, dude, don't bum me out."
yeah, exactly. Like, just let me be.
That is a great answer. I'd be bummed. Oh man,
I forget who said it, but it's like if I thought after I died I just had to live another life, not that I wanted it all to go black, but yeah, just something a little different, something maybe a little bit more holistic.
Not you. Oh my God. Okay. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think evil uses people as a vehicle. Yeah, for sure. I don't. I think that people aren't. This is another huge Robert Anton Wilson thing coming by way of Korbitsky. Is that nothing is because it's all in what we do. So yeah, so I think definitely if people can do evil things, but that doesn't define them as a constant in reality.
Wow, thank you. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? I'm going to set this one up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. Basic question, Bobby, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. There's another thing in the I Ching that's similar with which is never confront evil directly, and never name it because it that gives it the ability to defend itself. So yeah, so I think if you define something as your enemy, then that creates a conflict. So if you, the best way to deal with an enemy is to subvert it. And there's lots of different enemies, and not all enemies can be, approached the same way. But in most cases, you can subvert things with relentless positivity.
Yeah. Where'd you get your positiveness from? Your parents or on your own? How they raised you, or?
I would say no. I was mostly raised by my older brother, so maybe a bit from him.
Where did he get it from?
Uh, Unknown. Well, I think probably from my mom before. So, really, what happened before I was born, I had an older sister who passed away, and I think that kind of before I even showed up, there was this bomb that went off, and everyone was kind of a little bit shell shocked from it. So I come onto the scene with people who are dealing with having gone through a tragedy. So I think my brother got a pretty good foundation before that happened, and maybe a lot of. But to be honest, I think it came from my younger years were very chaotic and difficult, and then it came out of that into a much better situation. And so, the glass half full, half empty. If the glass started out empty and somehow got halfway filled, you're pretty appreciative for that half filled glass of water.
Dude, that's, McLuhan says, a half a truth is still a lot of a truth.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like,
it's better than nothing.
That is good. So, good answer. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, I think that fiction allows us to process our experiences again in a way that gives them context, in a way that makes them seem important, and in a way that captures how they felt to us. So again, I think fiction is, like I was saying before, is useful for building context for how we feel. And again, I'm not going to say that going to a movie is better than staring at a stream, but I think you can do both. I think ideally you do both.
Yeah. Now you touched on this a little, Bobby, but walk me through your path on choosing being a cartoonist as your calling in a way. I mean, you're really prolific. Your site is just gorgeous, and it's like, It's like deep. And I mean, it's not deep, it's rich, and it's just you mentioned these three comic cartoon icons that your uncle turned you on to: Jack Kirby, Alan Moore, and Will Eisner. But I mean, you look at them, and then at what point do you go, oh, that's what I want to do? So like, walk us through. Did you go to college? Did your parents take you to art museums and galleries growing up? Did they encourage drawing? Sort of walk us through that path when you became, I'm a cartoonist.
Sure. Well, I kind of, again, the circumstances of when I was younger was the thing that I could do for everyone was to not need anything. And the way that I was kind of socialized was through TV and books and comics. I was kind of very much like, the cliche of being raised by TV. So I was definitely raised by TV. And so I kind of have always had an affinity for storytelling and fiction. And it was the coincidence that, so I always had to be the writer when I was younger, when I was making comics with my friends, because I was the worst artist. So they were, so they were like, all right, you write the stories. And which is really, back then I thought it was like a bad thing, but it's actually awesome to be the one that I write the thing, and then they have to draw what I tell them. Like, they didn't realize that they were actually handing me all the power to write the story.
Wow. But who are, just stay on that for a second. Who are you looking at then? Is that pre-Kirby, Eisner, and Alan Moore?
Yeah, so that's, yeah.
So who are you looking at then? Like Simpsons or?
Well, definitely Simpsons, but I was reading a lot of Spider-Man and X-Men, and kind of like your generic superhero comics. And then later in high school, it was my German teacher that gave me the art stuff that was like, here, try this. And and then it was actually, so I was still trying to draw, couldn't do it, couldn't draw a thing. It was awful. And then one day, I don't know what was different, but one day it just worked. I was trying to draw off something, and it worked. It looked exactly like the thing I was trying to draw, and it was like magic. And
what age was that?
12.
Wow.
So when I was 12, I was like, and I was so scared that it would go away that I just kept doing it, because it showed up by magic. So it's like, if I don't keep this thing, it's like you get a little spark going on your campfire. You got to keep feeding that thing wood. And then coincidentally, what happened a couple of days later is my mom passed away. And so I had received my coping mechanism, and then the event happened that would necessitate it. And so I started making comics just to occupy myself.
Wow, that is so heavy. So a screenwriting teacher told me a great art or great film. Well, let's go back just for a second. Did your parents raise you going to art museums at all?
No. I mean, to be honest, they had their own things going on. So it
wasn't like no art school, no arts. Like, you should go to, not encouraging you as a kid. Did they encourage you to do these comics even pre-drawing with your friends?
They didn't, because they weren't around enough. My brother encouraged me to go to art school. I went to the Pratt Institute my freshman year at college. So my brother did encourage me.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, as a younger person, I was kind of on my own.
Right. So you were good. Did I interrupt you? You were going to say something else, or I just wanted to get that.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Okay. So a screenwriting teacher told me great art or great film or great comic is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Very little. I am more pursuing than like I definitely don't go into it with like, this is the grand statement I am trying to make. I go into it more like I wonder where this will lead. So yeah, so it's definitely it's in my process is exploration, not exposition.
That's good. So Marcel Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your readers, your viewers, your consumers when you're making your comics?
Almost not at all. Like pretty much they don't come into play. Now, once it's made, then the audience obviously is a full-on co-creator in the works. But in terms of when I'm creating stuff, it's all internal. It's all made following my own bliss.
But that's beautiful. But saying they're the co-creator, you meaning you put out a comic and then they're co-creating and that they give you feedback, or that it doesn't matter. You don't have to hear from them.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's like the Joyce thing. Like, what is it? Let me get it right.
Now, see, finally you got one I can do.
Yeah,
Are my consumers not my producers?
Exactly. So once it's out there in the world, because there's a certain amount of ambiguity that I put in everything. So when I do get feedback, it's all over the map because different people are saying different things.
Yeah, that's good. I love you bringing up ambiguity, because Bob Dobbs says ambiguity is a sign of human maturity.
For sure.
This is so funny. So McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So skin is extended by clothing. Knife and fork extend our teeth. The shutter and a camera extends our eyelid. Then there's non-tangible. Maybe philosophy extends consciousness or whatever. What is your main tool? A pencil or a pen or a Sharpie? What's your main tool?
So I use a stylus. I draw on a giant screen, and
you don't use paper. You use like digital.
Yeah,
but
I draw digital.
Stylus is basically a pencil. So
yeah, it's like an electric pencil.
It's an electric pencil. So what does a stylus extend? What humanness?
The nervous system, I would think, because it's electric.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is good.
I mean, my favorite thing about McLuhan is that, he kind of perceived this extension of the individual into a global network. But that's back when he was talking about network news and the daily newspaper. Can you imagine what he would think with this right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why he broke the Finnegan's Wake code. And Joyce basically invented every new trend on the internet, whether it's TikTok or Clubhouse or whatever the next one is. He invented it and disguised it as a book.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what he invented. Zoom and disguised it as a book.
Yeah.
So McLuhan says there's no such thing as a good or a bad movie. It's a good or a bad viewing experience. Any comment?
I agree completely. Yeah. Oh, so some of the best movies I've ever seen are terrible. They're just terrible movies. But I had a fun time,
Yeah. Well, you nailed that. Okay, tell me 3 movies that had an impact on you growing up.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Wow.
For sure.
These are big screen, big theater screenings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. When I was a kid, getting someone to take you to see a movie once was very tricky. Twice, not happening. You already saw it. You can't go see this movie again. I somehow got them to take me to see that movie 4 times in the theater. I can't imagine the amount of freaking out I had to do to get them to take me to see.
Are you already is it after 12? You're already drawing cartoons?
No. Well, I was already drawing, but I don't think I was drawing. No, I wasn't drawing anything steady.
What age did you claim yourself? I'm a cartoonist.
12, I would say.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 other movies.
I would say later on, F for Fake.
Oh my God, you know it all. Okay, one more.
And then what else? Oh, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Oh my God, dude, you really have a great movie sensibility. Okay, now how about 3 books growing up?
Growing up, let me think. I guess Watchmen, which is a graphic novel.
Yep.
I would say Contract with God, also a graphic novel.
Who's that author?
That's Will Eisner.
Oh, that's Eisner. Okay.
And then this is a little bit later, late teens, Illuminatus.
Robert Anton Wilson.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 TV shows that had a big impact on you.
Gilligan's Island, for sure.
Oh my God, that is great.
What else? Well, weirdly, Cheers. When I was real little, I loved Cheers because it was like, I don't know, it felt so normal, you know, like it was a steadying influence.
Yeah.
And then I really, really liked Late Night with David Letterman.
Really? Wow, that's good. But I'm surprised you didn't say Simpsons, South Park, or Ren and Stimpy. Any of those 3?
Oh, yeah. Well, Simpsons for sure, and South Park initially, yeah. What I liked about South Park was the not so much the humor, but the DIY aspect of it, where it was just construction paper, stop motion.
Right.
I went pretty far down the road of trying to imitate that to create my own thing.
Nice.
So yeah, I always loved. And I would say another movie, just Clerks, the Kevin Smith movie, because it was made by a guy with no ties to anything. He just made it with his friends, and yeah, that was definitely a big thing.
Right.
DIY culture.
Yeah, no, you got a great sensibility, dude. And you're so articulate, man. You're great with words. Michael Apted, I talked to him about 35, 40 years ago. Great director. He just passed away. He made a documentary on a Russian rock star. And I said, this is right when MTV's breaking. And I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? And he says, because we've learned to take in information faster. Marty Scorsese said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Can humans literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can? And I asked that with a bias. So.
Oh yeah, no, I think we can. I think I would say one of my favorite things when I was little was channel surfing, when you could just like hold down the button and kind of spread your attention across like 10 different channels. It doesn't work anymore. There's a little blip in between when you change channels. It doesn't work anymore. Have you ever noticed? I know. Yeah, you can't do it. So yeah, I'll admit that there's probably a little bit of like, I think we're missing out on something by spreading our attention like that. But I think we're also picking things up that way too. Though I mean, I guess what we're doing is reverting to pattern recognition when we're perceiving that way.
Yeah, dude, you know all the catchwords, man. You're good. That's, you know what else it is TSA, tactile situation awareness. It's when
interesting.
You know this?
When
the pilot gets hit in his bomber airplane, he can't go, well, I'll check this gauge and this gauge. He's got to look at all the gauges, and he can't identify with one. He has to make a decision. And again, I learned this from Bob Dobbs. He said, these millennials have it, or whoever you want to call younger people have it made, because they can look at 8 different things and not identify with one. See, you wanted to identify with that way of channel surfing. And now you don't have that way. So, you know, that was like you identified with that. So if you don't identify with any, that's pattern recognition. You get comprehensive awareness, and that's McLuhan all the way. And you don't have a point of view. You have suspended judgment. You don't go, well, I like this one and this one. That one I don't like, you know. Because you know, like Ren and Stimpy was the other one, and somebody said the other day, nah, I didn't like Ren and Stimpy. It was like Ren and Stimpy was like the parent was watching it with their kid on Saturday morning, and they go, you know, Johnny, this is what happened to me when I took acid in college.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, is it literally possible to multitask?
Yeah, I think it is for sure.
What was the motive of the cave artist?
I think it was trying to create memory. I think it was about documenting like experiences in an objective way. I think probably memory was a trickier thing back then, especially, and communication was a trickier thing. Though Grant Morrison has a bit that it was basically like early sigil making. Like if you draw the bison with the arrows in it, that then you have a collective target, and it makes it easier to make it reality.
Okay, Grant Morrison.
Yeah, Grant Morrison.
And who is he?
He's another comic book writer.
Oh, he's comic. So he said that cave art is, you said the sigil words,
Sigil. Yep.
Sigil, sigil, which means what?
So sigil it's a magic word. So you basically create a symbol that represents an intent.
You create a symbol that what?
Represents your intent.
That's Finnegan's Wake, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah.
create a symbol that represents your intent.
Like like the WME3 thing for HCE. That would be a sigil.
Yeah. So what was Joyce's intent? Your guess, creating Finnegan's Wake?
I think he was trying to prevent a backslide into a more primitive era. I think he saw, like, because he based it on Vico's Ricorso. Vico had 3 stages. Joyce made it 4, and so I think he was trying to make it so we didn't go back to the beginning again. I think he was trying to make us aware of the cycle so that we could break it, or at least, if not break it, at least endure it.
Yeah. How much of Finnegan's Wake do you get? Just your percentage, 0 to 100?
Yeah, like 2%. But
2? Wait,
yeah,
how much do you think Joyce got it?
I would say 50%.
That's good.
So I think that Joyce, I think every line was locked and loaded in his mind with a specific meaning. But I think the game he was playing meant that there were more syntactical and connections that he couldn't see. Just the way, you know what I mean? Like there was more there than he could. But I don't think he was writing randomly at all. I think he was in full control of every line of that book. Yeah.
Whew. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Compromise. Yeah, in most situations, compromise. I think your compromise has to be informed by conviction, but I think you should start with compromise in most situations first.
Bobby, where'd you get that from? The way you were raised or on your own?
Probably more on my own. Well, I think also probably, I mean, like studying with Robert Anton Wilson and getting into maybe logic, the one thing that you lose is your certainty. And so if you're not certain that you're right in any circumstance, then compromise is a more attractive solution, because you're not willing to dig your heels in on unsteady ground.
You've accomplished a lot. How do you rate these 3 elements? Luck, skill, and ambition.
Luck number 1, skill number 2, ambition 3.
Pretty good. T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in? Which you referred to earlier. You sort of said something about a dialogue or something inside our head, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, the symbol systems.
Yeah, there was something you said, and I almost shot this question in then, but I held it. Okay, so
okay, yeah.
What language is your inner dialogue in?
Definitely archetypal images in certain circumstances. Like when I'm like working on something, it's definitely image based.
Yeah.
So like yeah, especially like when I'm scripting a comic, it's not words. It's I'm watching images kind of go through the rounds.
What's another word for archetype that you're referring to archetype? What's another word
Yes,
for archetype?
I guess. What's another good word for archetype? Standard form.
Yeah, that's fun. Okay. Two pioneers in experimental film have mantras. George Manupelli said, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says, there is no self-expression. Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making, comic making, whatever, music making more? I know it's both and it depends, but is it more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technology or culture is dominant?
I think it's more being a vehicle. Even if you don't know it, I think that it's definitely you don't know where your ideas are coming from or what makes that idea so important that you have to see it through.
Yeah.
Again, I think you can also I think you can tip the scales one way or the other while you're doing it. But yeah, I don't think you fully know where the stuff is coming from. I don't anyway.
Yeah, that's good. Again, there's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. You're on a roll, Bob.
Right on.
You're knocking them off. It's Jeopardy. Yeah, you're winning millions. But it's like Ginger Baker, the drummer for Cream. He said, they go, where'd you get your music, your drum style from? He goes, I was in London when we were bombed. And it went like this. Boom, 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 boom. He goes, dang, you just look at his drum style. That's what it is.
That's what he's doing.
Can art making be egoless?
Yeah, for sure. I think when it is, I think it takes forms that we don't always recognize as art. I'll give you an example. I went down to visit my kids' grandparents a couple years ago, and their grandmom was setting out the table for breakfast. And you never saw a more beautiful spread in your life, like the fresh flowers and the biscuits, the little gravy thing, and like the dishes. And she created this amazing artwork and didn't even know she was doing it. And it was food. It was like actually, I was thinking, I was like, compared to what I do, this is so far beyond like my goofy little doodles. So yeah, so I think that was an art, and I think it was complete. She didn't even know like that it was an art, and wouldn't have. She didn't sign her name on it like I do.
I call it culinary artist, but it's
Yeah.
all about food presentation is really important when you're doing that helps. Okay, we brought up ego. Was Freud right?
I think he was partially right. Have you ever read Ernest Becker's Denial of Death?
I know about it. Tell me, what are you going to say?
So his thing is basically take Freud and replace suppressing sex, and instead we're suppressing our fear of death.
Oh, suppress death instead of Freud's sex. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah, that's essentially the broad strokes of the book. Yeah.
And you agree with Ernest? It's pretty well articulated in his book.
It is. He makes a pretty convincing case. It was also it was this awesome class I took at University of Delaware called Death and Dying. So the professor really he put out a feast for us, and so not just that book, but when connected with everything else we were doing, he made a pretty good case that as a culture we're pretty neurotic about death, and we twist and turn in ways to avoid it. And it like some of the weirder stuffs about the way our world works can be traced back to us not wanting to think about death.
Yeah. Can you forget to die?
I'd be neat if you could.
You're great with words. Neat. It'd be neat if you
Yeah.
I was asking you, Bobby, do you think you could forget to die?
Yes, I think in certain circumstances, but I also think of death as a more ongoing, immediate thing. Like I think we have little deaths all the time,
Yeah.
and that the things that we aren't as solid as they appear.
Great lead into this one, Bobby. Is perception reality?
Perception's at least experience, and that's all we have. So I don't know anything about reality, but I know that perception is experience. Yeah, that's there's nothing beyond it so far as we've found yet, I don't think.
My favorite answer ever in 35 years asked that was Coleman Miller. He made a fake experimental film. You got to see it. It's called Uso Justo, Usojusto. It's a free online. I says, is perception reality? He goes, that's all you got.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You essentially said that. Somebody upped Coleman one. Okay. Why is it so difficult for humans to consider the possibility that life may be pointless?
I think it goes back to people trying to read their lives. I think that we want there to be these clean storybook delineations throughout life. But when you learn to look at life instead of read it, you can see that that those categories don't apply.
Yeah. Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Name one.
So I'm always coming up with, I'm working on this sci-fi comic, and so I'm always trying to come up with optimistic scenarios for the future instead of dystopian ideas for the future. So an idea I had was that have you ever heard of speed running? Like that. So speed running is these kids, they take video games that you're meant to play over hours and days, and they complete them as fast as possible. So instead of it taking 8 hours to beat Super Mario Brothers, it takes them 18 minutes, right? And they've done studies on them that it literally changes the shape of their brains because they're creating so many neural pathways that it just like completely changes the landscape of their brains, right? So it's this crazy talent that is being, in my opinion, maybe wasted on, I don't know about wasted, but so I had the idea that in a future scenario, you have these speedrunners, but instead of beating Super Mario Brothers, they're curing cancer with nano. So you're taking that skill set, and basically they become surgeons that remove cancer from your body. So the idea that video game players become surgeons is an impossible idea that I've chosen to believe, and I'm going to try to articulate in a comic.
That was really well done. It's beautiful because some kid will come out of speed running and do something great, and he might never even say that's what caused it. We won't necessarily know that.
Oh yeah,
that's what caused that person to do something like that. And yeah, because Sunra says a great thing. He says, the impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change.
absolutely. I used to do this thing when I was younger. I was living at the beach for a summer, and just for whatever reason had a drawer full of cash that I was living off of. And I would take a $20 bill. Do you remember, when people were broke, how they'd go around, they'd put their finger in the payphone to see if there was a quarter?
Oh, yeah.
I used to put $20 bills in the coin slot because you'd find someone that was desperate, right? Desperate enough to look for a quarter, and they'd pull out a $20 bill. And I just thought that was magic. That was like,
that is magic.
And so
That's
I like the idea of creating those impossible experiences.
that is a beautiful thing, dude. I love that. Tell me one major element that has changed since you've started, since 12 started cartooning, in one major element that stayed the same.
One major element that changed when I started, it was like full on like Shem the Penman, like full like Mr. Sensitive, neurotic. Not I couldn't really attend to the details and was doing the starving artist thing. And now I've definitely have gone the other way quite a bit, and Sean the postman, the guy that can pay the bills and uh, uh, file the taxes and get funding and all that sort of stuff. It's the details that have actually sustained the art, like being able to self-publish and work the desktop publishing software. Like no one would have published my stuff but me. So the fact that I know how to do all that stuff meant that the work could continue. So that's something that definitely changed. Before, I all I could do was produce art and hope that something good would happen with it. And then I kind of became someone that could do something with my own stuff. So that's something that definitely changed. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And then what has stayed the same pretty much the whole time is the work that I'm producing. It is not changed. Like it's basically been one continuous story. Not that it would be recognizable to other people as such, but it's definitely been this leads to that, leads to that, leads to that from the beginning.
That's Frank Zappa calls his work the big note, and it's called conceptual continuity. So there's a thread.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But do you were also a high school teacher. Do you make your living being a cartoonist, or do you it's half and half, or how do you make your living? I'm curious.
Yeah, mostly from teaching, and then the other. So for about 10 years, I worked for a record label, and I did all of their distribution and artwork and stuff like that, and worked out a couple of good royalty deals. So the comics make nothing. Teaching is about half, and my royalties from the music days make up the other half.
How cool! What label is it?
They are called a million different things.
Is there any big name acts that we would know, or
no? It was what it was is so it was based in Philadelphia, and I don't know if you know this about Philly or not, but they have amazing touring musicians, right? Like they're not famous, but when Jay-Z needs a guitarist, it's going to be the guy that was sitting next to me in the studio that goes. Or another guy that worked there was in Earth, Wind and Fire and Peaches and Herb. So what they would do is pump out generic dance music and public domain stuff. It was just like a factory. They would just produce reams and reams of music, and then I would take it and A&R it. I would make up bands, I would make up song titles, and just churn out this endless catalog of music.
wow, that's cool. No, the Philly. You mean it's sort of the Philly sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, Philadelphia produces all the great bass players too.
Yeah, oh yeah, that was one of the guys I worked with. Was Kenny Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know him, but yeah, he's been in, like, he was Patti LaBelle's band leader, like all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah. No, that's good. And so Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than overcome the weakness. Tell me a weakness that you've turned into a strength.
Yeah, so one of the main, my website is called Weirdoverse, and the main title that I put out is Weird Comics. So I was like, so what I did, I kind of figured out, I was like, most people would look at this stuff and think like that it doesn't make any sense. So instead of them being bad comics, I made them weird comics. So you know what I mean? Like you take people's perception of it, and it's like, no, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's not bad. It's weird.
That is good. You really are. It's such a pleasure because you get every one of these questions. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When it's constructive, when it's directed in a constructive way, for sure.
What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
I don't know.
That is a good answer. I'm glad. Why do you think women live longer than men?
I think because men I like tend to stress themselves out about stuff that especially like stuff that doesn't matter. Yeah, I think we twist ourselves up about a lot of imaginary things.
Yeah. That is a cliche answer, but it's right. And it's so, the answer usually is women talk about it, get it out of their system, and that relieves the stress. Men hold it in, the stress kills them.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. You create what you resist. It's a saying. It's sort of like one creates what one resists. Bob Goldthwait morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce wrote, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So how do you respond to this thought? I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but you create what you resist. Not you, Bobby, but one creates what one resists.
No, I mean, I've definitely experienced that before, for sure. Like especially like, in my comics, it's a lot about like overcoming the self, but I also do autobiographical comics, which is, concretizing the self. So yes, I can definitely, in my own life, I can definitely see working both sides of the fence there.
Yeah. How do you find peace of mind?
At at the end of the day, pretty much, I have two sons, and we watch a show before bed, and it is my favorite part of the day. And I don't know what it is about it, but once I make it to that point of the day, I feel like I've succeeded for the day.
That is beautiful. So how old are your sons?
13 and 11.
So who picks the show, and is it on a laptop, or is it TV, or is it
It's TV. Yeah, it depends on what we're watching. So we actually just talked about this. So when they were little, they picked the show, and so I, spent almost a decade watching whatever cartoons they were into, and then over the last couple of years, I've picked the show, and we kind of collaborate and pick a show together, and then we actually just pick a show, start at the beginning, and watch it all the way through.
So you mean a show, meaning a feature film, or you mean a
Oh,
TV
a TV show. Yeah, TV show.
You mean like The Sopranos? You mean to watch it all the way through, meaning all
Yes.
the episodes?
Yeah. One episode at a time, and we just kind of pick a show and run it through.
What talk about what they ask you about when you? I mean, do you allow them to see violence or sex or what? I mean, is it?
There's it depends on if the show is bringing something that's worth it. So not always. I mean, for the most part, we're watching sitcoms. Like we just did 30 Rock. We did right now we're doing Scrubs. And what's really fun about it is that like a lot of the shows are older, and so it brings in all sorts of like conversations like who's Dan Quayle and why is the joke that he's so dumb? And you go, well, what happened was he tried to spell potato and it didn't go so well. And it's just like, it's this larger cultural conversation that the show is a springboard for.
That is so cool. What stands out for them now that they're going, that's my favorite? Do they ever go, I want to watch that again? Are they?
Oh yes. So now, and it's kind of interesting what you were saying before about multitasking. So now, when they play video games, they'll rewatch one of the shows that we watched because if you've seen it already, you can just have it on as background noise. So they'll be building something in Minecraft and then rewatching a show that we watched and kind of using that as just because when a lot of times when you're building something in one of those games, it's like drawing, it's like painting. Only part of your mind is occupied, so the other part is entertained by the show. And so they're kind of doing two things at once.
That's sort of like you trying to convince people to take you to Roger Rabbit. They can
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
They can do it like that. But I'm just intrigued of what is their tendency towards knowing what you do. You know, there's a joke, you probably know it, the kid gets to the age where he realizes that his dad has a job and he goes to work and he makes money, and the dad is an art teacher. And so the kid says, well, what do you do for your job, Dad? And he goes, I'm an art teacher. I teach people how to draw. And the kid goes, you mean they forgot? So, I mean, they must go, wow, you've got the coolest job in the world. You just draw comics. I mean, what do they think of your draw? They're inspired and they're doing their own comics, or they're like, oh no, you're too good. I mean,
they kind of do. They both play a couple of different instruments. They've gone more the music side of things.
really?
And I don't play a lick. So yeah, they do music more. And with the art thing, they were impressed for a little bit, but now it's just like, yeah, we would like I'll ask their opinion on something. They're like, it's fine. Like they're it's old news to them.
That's funny. Let's go back to music for a second. What music did you grow up that had an impact on you?
So music didn't have an impact on me until I got to high school and kind of got involved with the local music scene. Local bands from around Delaware and Pennsylvania, Plow United, Power of Four. Who else did I like?
But what's their genre? Because I don't even know those bands.
Yeah, of course you wouldn't know them. Punk rock.
You like punk rock?
Oh yeah.
What known punk rock bands did you like?
Let's see, known.
Like the DC guy, Minor Threat?
No, I never really got into Minor Threat. You know Bouncing Souls?
No, but I'll look them up. Bouncing Souls, yeah.
Riverdale's, Mr. T Experience. Again, you might know them because they're from around you, I think.
Yeah, no, but I've heard of Mr. T Experience. That's good. So then what's the genre your kids are gravitating towards?
They don't really tend to listen to music. They play music, but they don't really listen to it that much. The older one is into classic rock, but the younger one doesn't really listen to music. And neither did I when I was their age.
But do they take music lessons because you're telling them to, or they came to you and said, we want to learn?
No, it was their moms. I think had them go down that path. I think that was came from them.
They said, let's encourage music.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a music question that sort of applies to art too. I'm curious. My friend said there's 3 T's: technique, theory, and taste. So technique is what you did. Oh, I can't draw. And then you eventually learned how to draw. In fact, I love that you had your epiphany. I can draw.
Yes.
Technique. Theory is, how you like, what theory is, and then taste. How does one acquire taste, either in music or in comics? Like, how is that? Which it might be aesthetics, but how do you acquire taste? Like, how did you acquire taste for comics?
I think it's just like when you make a connection with, I don't know that you can try to do it, but I think it's just like when something speaks to you beyond everything else. So I think like once you read enough comics, you can start to tell the difference between, what really speaks to you and what's just like, uh, out there for sale. Like there's a difference between the Spider-Man comics that come out every month and then Watchmen, which is like swinging for the fences.
Right. So, how has comics shaped your behavior?
I really just because the time it takes forever to make them. So just physically, I've spent a lot of time sitting at a drawing board, as opposed to doing whatever other things that people do when they're not drawing comics.
But I mean, talk about like, well, they're actually you're leaning towards sci-fi. I'd love to talk about that a little. But have you ever read More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon?
No.
Yeah. Anyways, it's some. I'm trying to get some sci-fi person to read it because it's the biggest book influence on Frank Zappa and Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead. And I'm always curious, like, what was it about that book, And so this thing about science fiction, what's the function of science fiction?
I think it's to like expand your sense of the possible.
Yeah.
At least that's how I'm using it. I'm using to kind of like push my imagination and make it a bigger place. Especially because the past maybe 20 years has been all about using our imagination to imagine worst case scenarios. And so what I'm trying to do right now is imagine best case scenarios.
That is amazing. I really respect that a lot. And did you ever study power of positive thinking or any of that sensibility? Like
No,
where'd
I
you
mean,
get your this from?
that just kind of happened. I think especially because I kind of went through my like teenage dark period, and then
Yeah.
as I started to find things that spoke to what was bothering me, then I realized like, oh, it's possible to make progress. Like I'll say like I was not naturally headed down a path where I was going to be a creative or someone interested in philosophy. I had a spontaneous uh, visionary experience that kind of pushed me in this direction, and I thought I had gone crazy because of this experience. And then as I found like Eastern philosophy and Timothy Leary and Robert Anton Wilson, and it kind of changed my perspective of what was happening to me from something that was negative to something that was positive. And it was such a relief that like the game wasn't over and that maybe it was just beginning, that I've kind of felt enthused by it ever since.
That is beautiful. So Alan Watts has 5 questions just off the top of your head in a few words. Who started it all?
Nobody. I think there's that Ezra Pound thing. By no man these verses. So yeah, so I think nobody.
By no man these verses. You mean, what is he saying there?
I think because Ezra Pound's main strategy when composing the cantos was almost like found objects. It was taking pre-existing phrases and then kind of editing them into something that was beautiful. So he didn't entirely write the cantos. He selected it, he polished it, but he can't take credit for all of it because he didn't really write all of it. So it's a collaboration between him and these other people. So who wrote the cantos? No man, because it was a collaboration.
Right, that's Joyce. They says, who wrote Finnegan's Wake? He said
The shout in the street. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Are we going to make it?
Absolutely.
Where do we put it?
In the public domain.
Nice. Who's cleaning it up?
Everybody should probably do a little bit.
Is it serious?
Only sometimes.
That is good. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Keep going.
On what occasion do you lie?
To get out of stuff, for sure. Yeah,
That
yeah.
was, Bobby, you answered it almost like a question, like to get out of, like
Oh
in
no,
that.
I'll tell you that straight up.
Yeah, but the way you said it, it almost sounded like a question, and that's in the Irish they say you Irish people answer questions with questions, and they go, "We do, eh?"
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Because that really this series is all about inventing new questions. Should toilet paper come off the roll or under? Like over or under?
Overhand. Otherwise, you don't have leverage to tear it.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what title would it be?
I've already got like okie dokie is what I call it.
Nice. They want it's Fantagraphics. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell would it be?
Oh, what's Grandpa's shoe?
Grandpa's shoe?
Yeah.
You mean your grandpa's shoe smell?
Yeah. Well, I'd never met my grandpa. I was just riffing.
Right. Grandpa's shoe. But you mean like stink foot or like the leather of the
No,
shoe?
like the leather. Like
The
you know how
leather.
books smell like some weird old object.
Yeah. No, that was good. I like it. They want to have a color for some of the ink rather than just black. What color?
Blue.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Um, at a Battery Park in Newcastle and out of ice. Let it melt.
Nice. Bobby, tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Fame seems like a bummer.
Dude, you know the 3 answers I get the most are fame, money, and heroin.
No, yes, yeah.
Fame is amazing. That was a great. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Not duck.
That is a great answer. Not duck. That almost sounds like a Groucho Marx answer.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Why a duck?
Yeah, buy a duck, buy not a chicken. Tell me, please. We're winding up now, and this has been a true delight, Bobby. What a pleasure. Thank you to Steve Pratt for introducing us. Tell me how Robert Anton Wilson shaped your behavior. Like, what is it? You know,
Yeah, so I'll tell you specifically. So I had, like I said, I had a weird experience when I was younger. Thought it was maybe a very bad thing. Part of what drew me to him was that he had described having a very similar experience, and so you kind of want to talk to someone who's had that very similar experience. And he changed my opinion of it being a bad thing to a good thing, and that made a tremendous bit of difference.
and how did he do that? Just by reading his books, or
No. So I got to when I studied with him. Part of the thing that I signed up for was that I could email with him personally, back and forth, and then eventually he let me come out and meet him. And so just kind of having him around as a person that I could talk to directly took what I got from his books and just kind of further cemented it into something that I could actually do something with.
and your weird experience was that when just pre your mom dying, you discovered that you could do your comics, or was that another different experience?
That was another different experience. Yeah, I had a experience when I was younger, like basically like a disassociative experience, like where you kind of experience non-duality, but what not being raised with that as a possibility, it seemed like a very, very bad thing. And then it happened again when I was a teenager at a party. I was very drunk and enjoyed some marijuana, and just had an experience of kind of the boundaries between myself and the world dissolving, and experiencing it as a very horrific ordeal. And part of what I got from Robert Anton Wilson was recontextualizing it as a mystical experience, as opposed to a breakdown experience.
Right. That's good. That's McLuhan's main thing, is how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, he's sort of. So it's interesting because Joseph Beuys, this artist.
No.
Check him out. He's an agitprop political artist who lived with a coyote in an art gallery for his art project. But he actually wrote his own extra chapter to Finnegan's Wake.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and he said, make the secrets productive. Lou Welsh, who's a beat poet and an ad man, said, guard the secrets, but constantly reveal them. But it was another Wakean, Thornton Wilder, in 1928 said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards out on the table for 90 minutes, Bobby. I'm really grateful, and I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this, but what's it really all about for you?
I think raising the lowest common denominator, like taking the lowest that we can go and making it so that it's not quite so low. I sort of like I read what is it, The Grunch of Giants by Buckminster Fuller, and which is all about basically that just by changing things around a little bit, we could raise up everyone's standard of living without inconveniencing anyone at all. Like it's not tearing someone down to bring other people up. You could literally just, by reconfiguring things, raise everybody up to a higher standard of living. And it's almost more a problem of imagination than resources. The resources are here. They're just, we don't have the imagination to deploy them in a way that is beneficial to everyone. And so in whatever little way I can lead breadcrumbs along the trail to that realization, I would like to throw as many out into the world as I can.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer too. It's really inspiring because it resonates with me, because I'm from Flint, Michigan, and pre the water problem in Flint, it was like prospering city when I was there. And then it just went to the lowest of the low. And someone said, no, they're the ideal city because you can't go any lower. And then a couple of years later, the water problem.
Right.
Like, you can,
right.
But they can only get better. You can't get any lower.
Right.
I mean, we were in Flint in '62, pre-Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, teaching us that there's pollution, and no one then would ever go near the Flint River. We knew it was polluted.
Yeah.
It was like, before, pollution was like a icon word, and it was amazing. Then 50 years later, they go, yeah, we're giving the Flint people Flint River water. It's like, what?
You knew that was a bad idea.
So just a couple more. What's the healthiest cultural shift you see developing today?
Oh, good question. I think that the whole thing that we have, where people are becoming, we're having longer memories about how things got the way they are, and I think that is a pretty healthy shift to realize, like, we didn't just pop up here in 1950 and things were just this way. I think the longer memory we have of how things led to the current moment, I think the healthier we're going to be in terms of dealing with what's actually going on.
Bobby, what a pleasure. I've learned a lot and it really touched me deeply. What's the last question is, what gives you the most optimism?
For sure, my kids and my students. Young people are. It's amazing to see. At least when I see them, I know how much smarter they are than I was at their age, and so I just am in in all of their potential of what they can do with just every day I get surprised by how smart these kids are, and yeah, so it's hard to be pessimistic when you're surrounded by novelty. And I kind of get a lot of that. So
beautiful, Bobby. That's the answer I get the most is youth for optimism. So thank you so much. In fact, I got the question from the last question they asked Groucho Marx, what gives you the most optimism? And he said other people.
yeah,
It's sure been fun spending this time with you. Thank you so much.